You know, when it comes to stories, we have them all. Myths, fairy tales, folklores, fallacies, what have you. They all have something strange. Fake or not, most of them have some truth to them. Truth hidden in plain sight. And there's countless of them worldwide. A great example contributing to my previous video about the Library of Alexandria. See, Plato was one of the philosophers who visited the library. He shared a story that was passed down to him. An allegorical story, or jewels of information about a city that populated a powerful, advanced civilization with advanced knowledge, with navigating skills that opportuned them, who lived prosperous, surrounded by enormous and beautiful statues and buildings. Possibly submerged underwater? Who knows? I know one thing. It isn't stopping scholars from searching the Lost City of Atlantis. Now let's dig deep and embrace the strange. Something strange about the Lost City of Atlantis. There's many deep mysteries of Earth's civilization. Many that has been lost from history. All we have is tales and clues. Trails that has scholars in search for this island. City of Atlantis. It was a large island in the Atlantic Ocean. It rested in front of the Pillars of Hercules. It was ruled by a confederation of kings, and its power extended over Libya as far as Egypt and over Europe as far as Tuscany. See, after the war against the Titans, Zeus and his brothers gained complete victory over their enemies and began to consider how the world which they had conquered should be divided between them. Zeus was to reign supreme in heaven, and Poseidon the ocean, which is why he's referred to as the god of the sea. Poseidon created Atlantis to have the alternate zones of land and sea, 2 of land and 3 of water, in a rotund shape around the heart of Atlantis. The emphasis of the wild abundance of Atlantis points out the wealth of the people, for they could derive almost all that they needed from the earth and sea. Now Poseidon and Plato had 5 pairs of twins, who along with their descendants ruled the 10 provinces into which Poseidon had divided Atlantis. The island in the ocean were called after Poseidon's firstborn, Atlas, who was also king over his brothers. The brothers and the descendants of their 10 royal houses ruled over many other islands, and also over the Mediterranean peoples living west of Egypt and Tuscany. The 10 kings who governed each his own province are said to have assembled every 5th year and every 6th year, administering the public affairs and delivering judgment according to the law that Poseidon handed down to them. The city of Atlantis sat just outside the outer ring of water and spread across the plain covering a circle of 11 miles. This was a densely populated area where the majority of the population lived. Beyond the city lay a fertile plain, 330 miles long and 110 miles wide, surrounded by another canal used to collect water from the rivers and streams of the mountains. The climate was such that 2 harvests were possible each year. One in the winter, fed by the rains, and one in the summer, fed by irrigation from the canal. Surrounded the plain to the north were mountains which soared the skies. Village lakes, rivers, and meadows dotted the mountains. Since the 1800s, Atlanteans have been credited for having had the technology to generate electricity, build flying machines, and harness nuclear power for energy and warfare, all developed more than 9,000 years before such things came into being in modern society. Other claims have Atlanteans knowledgeable about a formidable death ray, secrets for levitation, and pure forms of energy through crystals. Many Atlantis enthusiasts firmly believe that the inhabitants of the lost continent had cosmic connections with extraterrestrials and may actually have been a colony established on Earth by alien explorers. Atlantis was always imagined as a place of deep mystery, buried in the oceanic depths of the waves that claimed them. Yet the story of Atlantis appears to have been initially written by Plato in 2 related texts, Timaeus and Critias. In Timaeus, Athens was comparatively described as a virtuous state in their worship of their goddess Athena, who prevailed over reason, intelligence, art, and literature. The Atlanteans at the time were seeking new territory to conquer after expanding their empire to continents near their islands. Eventually, they crossed paths with the Athenians. War was raged and the Athenians repelled the Atlantean invaders and triumphed. The Athenians put those Atlanteans who resisted into slavery and liberated those who cooperated. Yet, overnight, a series of terrible storms and earthquakes flooded the land, covering Atlantis in mud and water. Atlantis was then lost to the sea. However, at the end of Critias, it is mentioned that Atlantis was being punished by Zeus and the other Olympian gods in the hope that they would improve. But unfortunately, the rest of the dialogue of Critias' text Plato wrote had been lost. So one might wonder that if Atlantis is simply a story written by Plato in these two scriptures, why are so many in the scientific field in a fervent temper to discover a lost city that shouldn't theoretically exist? Some argue that Atlantis was a fictitious utopia created by Plato to keep citizens faithful to the virtues of the gods and appreciate the blessings bestowed upon them. Some believed he wrote them for mere entertainment. The entanglement occurs because the concept of lost civilizations due to natural disaster is not a far-reaching thought. However, one location of interest was discovered in southern Spain where satellite photographs discovered a submerged city, the Dona Ana National Park. The German scientist who found the site was using Google Earth satellite imagery to look at the area when he found it. Archaeologists explored the city and found a series of artifacts that appeared to be Atlantean, as well as memorial cities that archaeologist Richard Freund believed that the survivors of Atlantis created after their home was destroyed. These memorials were found all the way in central Spain, over 100 miles away. From his Freund surmised that the Atlanteans were the ancestors of the later Phoenician civilization, known for prospering trade with their superior boats and ships. Unfortunately, the swamp the site is located in is covered in water 11 months of the year and is dredged in silt and mud. This makes it difficult to research, and news about the site has been largely silent. And since Atlantis was first described, claims have been made that certain members of the civilization escaped destructions during its catastrophic final days and managed to impart their knowledge to other peoples of the world, helping civilize primitive societies, passing on the secrets of written language and supervising constructions of some of the world's most mysterious structures of the ancient world. The pyramids of Egypt and the Americas, the Sphinx in Egypt, and the megaliths of Western Europe are among the structures attributed to the genius of Atlanteans. Perhaps it's just another civilization lost to the sea.